What's up guys, Sparring Cat here, and in today's Bahamut Cat's video, I'm going over 18 units that any beginner who just picked up the Bahamut Cats for the first time should be looking to get, or using if they already have them. These 18, out of all of them, none of them are Ubers, and you'll get them across various points of early game, and I'll make sure to specify that, but these 18 cats are tried and true, and they will help you progress. So without further ado, let's get right into the ranking. As you can see, there are 3 different tiers, from Essential down to Niche. All 3 of these tiers are going to have fantastic units in them. It's just going to be how frequently they're fantastic. So Essential, these units are great in just about every situation. Fantastic, they're very powerful in a lot of matches. And Niche, they can carry you some wins on your back. Like they can put you on their back, they're very good, but in select circumstances. So starting things off, we have Eraser Cat, aka Tank Cat, and he's going to go in Essential. He is one of the best meat shields in the game, no matter what point in the game you're in. He's just great throughout the Bahamut Cats. So early game, definitely use him. He's great at tanking shots, fantastic cheap meat shield, and trust me, he will be used throughout the game. He's the second cat that you will unlock, so virtually every player has him, and that's a blessing because you can bring him into just about any stage throughout early and mid game, and he is fantastic. Even the late game, he's not bad, but that is way down the road. If you're just starting out, you're definitely going to want equipped Eraser Cat. And the next will be Bahamut Cat, aka Cat, the very first unit you use. And if you're in early game, he's fantastic because you're only going to have so many meat shields. He's the cheapest meat shield that you're going to have for a while. And all in all, he's fast, he's super spammable, he's cheap, and he's a very solid meat shield. And if you're in early game, he's the first unit you get, so you're going to have to beat stages with him out of necessity. And essentially, he will help you with the Eraser Cat. That will probably be your duo, if anything. A couple more meat shields here I have to rank. Another fantastic option is going to be Sumo Cat. Sumo Cat, out of these 3, is the first one that you have to purchase with cat food, but it is worth it if you're in early game because although he is a bit more expensive, he has the speed of Bahamut Cat with the health of Tank Cat, so that is very nice to have. And even down the road in Stories of Legend, when you complete some of those chapters, there's something called a 4-star stage where after you clear the chapter 3 times, the 4th time you can only use specials and rares. So Sumo Cat, aka Rice Ball Cat in its true form, will be very useful. So make sure to invest in him because he will help you throughout the game, especially early and mid game. Next is Ramen Cat, and if you have him, I'm going to put him in Essential because he is fantastic all game, even if you progress super far. But focusing on Empire of Cats into the future, early Stories of Legend, he is very, very good. He will tank a ton of shots against angel traits, but more importantly, he's a fantastic generalist, and he deals quite a bit of damage in your front line. So for being a meat shield, he has some offense to him, which is very nice, but he's very durable. You could stack him, and you could easily use him with these other 3 meat shields on this list. I had to cover the meat shields because one of the number 1 mistakes that beginners make is that they don't meat shield. If you don't meat shield, your good expensive units, which I will cover some of them on this list, or your spammable attackers, which I will also cover on this list, will be killed by the enemies. So you have to protect them with these cheap spammable units, so that way your backline is protected. Very important. Our first niche unit, and this is by no means an insult, but we have Jurassic Cat. And you're definitely going to want to use him in metal stages. It's non-negotiable because at this point, you might have 1 critical hitter, and that will be Jurassic Cat. You're going to want to invest in him a bit just because metal enemies, when you're in early game, and even a late game because they get more powerful, they are almost impossible to defeat without proper anti-metals. And sometimes they are impossible to defeat without them. So you're going to definitely want to invest in him because he will likely be your first critical hitter. Next to Marauder Cat, who's not on this list because he's an Uber. And I just want to reiterate, there are 0 Uber rares on this list. So it is as easy as possible for that. So you guys can get the units that you need. I want to keep it simple because Ubers are very hard to obtain in mass. Next is Euron, and she's on this list. She's going to be the hardest to obtain because she's further into the game, but this is about the cutoff for early game. You're going to definitely want to use Euron if you're climbing through Stories of Legend and not trying to get a lot of Ubers, because Euron Wolf has the stats of an Uber Rare as a special. She has great range, high DPS, area attack, frequent attacks, as well as just good stats in general. So you're going to want to use her and protect her very well. All in all, quite a force on this list. And in general, a lot of people will use Euron throughout early and mid game and still use her in late game. She just keeps her value because she's really good, but it is a bit further down the road. You do have some other things to do before you get to her. So some of these other units on the list will help you reach her. Cameraman, fantastic unit. He is very powerful with his area attack and the fact that you can spam him and he deals a lot of damage. And additionally, he is strong against floating enemies. So he only takes 1/2 damage against them while dealing 50% more. And that is an important trait. If you see strong, massive damage, anything like that, resistant, it's very useful because that means he could specialize against that trait. But he's not niche because he is a very good generalist as well. You can use him against non-floating traits and he'll do just fine. It's just that's an added bonus when using him against floating enemies. On the topic of floating enemies, you're going to want to use Sanzo as well. He's more niche because he absolutely crushes floating enemies and angels later in the game if you get him talented. But Sanzo is very powerful against floating enemies because he can pretty much keep them in place. He slows them, so that means they're crawled to the minimum speed of movement, which is 1. And what this allows for you to do is basically replenish your front lines. If, say, Bun Bun is getting stalled or the face is getting stalled, you can get troops in and it will give you more time. The face is actually already the slowest unit in the game, so it won't do much against him, but definitely units like Bun Bun and Moths and stuff like that, very, very useful, and it will give your army more time to recover and strengthen itself. Now, I wish I had Hip Hop Cat when I was just starting out, and if you have him, that is absolutely fantastic because for the very, very cheap cost of 675 cents, he could put up some gigantic numbers. He has great health, and he also has a ton of damage as well. But he has a long attack animation, as well as only having single target attack. So you're going to want to use them in stages that aren't spamming a ton of enemies, because that way you can get him to connect on the boss, and he will deal a ton of damage. So use him wisely if you have him. He is a super rare, so it's a little harder to obtain than a rare, but he is widespread enough to the point where a lot of players will get him early on. So if you see him, I highly recommend you to upgrade him and throw him in your lineup because there's a great amount of value that comes with his low cost. Another unit which is pretty much essential is going to be Paris Cat, aka Salon Cat, aka Cyborg Cat. Just very, very powerful as a mid-range area attacker that's super spammable, deals a good amount of damage, replenishable, and all in all, it just deals a ton of DPS collectively when you stack Paris's on top of each other. However, and I call this Paris syndrome, it gets very expensive if the stage does not drop an ample amount of money. So what you're going to want to do is bring Paris in stages that you know there's a ton of gories, a ton of moths, stuff like that. So Paris counters those very well. And additionally, they drop a lot of money. Kangaroos, all that stuff. Paris Cat, that way you can send 10 or 15 out and nothing bad will happen. You'll have the money. But if it's a drought and you're not getting cash back, you'll end up spending all your money on 3 Paris Cats that won't do a whole lot. So Paris Cat can be essential through a lot of the game. Paris is very powerful, and if you use Paris in the right situation, she will help you a lot. But you have to know that if you're not going to get the money to use her properly, it won't work. So I will keep her an essential just because of that. But at the same time, you have to use her well. One of the most niche units on this list, but also one of the most recognizable, is going to be Apple Cat. And iCat, which is shown here, the true form, is able to pretty much stop red enemies completely. Literally, he freezes them so they cannot do anything at all, which gives your army time to attack them and move over some ground. which is invaluable in a lot of stages because red enemies, when you're early in game, are very, very powerful. They're tanky and they deal a lot of damage. So you're definitely going to want to stop their game. And if the enemy has a long time in between attacks or is slow, doesn't deal a whole lot of damage, or just very prone to being frozen, then you're definitely going to want to use iCat, because iCat can move the momentum back into your game. And you'll see there's these red floating heads that charge you at a ton of speed, and you might not know what to do. iCat is your solution. Next, another meat shield that you're definitely going to want to use is Jiangshi Cat. If you're not going to use Eraser or Macho Cat, you might as well use Jiangshi, because he's kind of both of them in one. He has the durability of Tank and the speed of Macho, similarly to Sumo. And in the true form, even able to survive some lethal shots at a guaranteed rate, which is great because that basically gives him a second life. He could tank at least 2 bun hits and stuff instead of 1, which can kill Valkyrie in a shot. So it's insane. He has a ton of health with that. He moves very well, and he deals a lot of damage too. So although you can beat the Battle Cats with just a few meat shields, and I don't really want to put him up there with Ramen and Eraser, I will put him at the top of Fantastic probably, just because of how good he is and how much he carried me. But also being able to use him in 4-star stages down the road in mid-game is very nice as well. So I'll put him in Fantastic. You could argue he's essential. I agree with either one, honestly, because he is that good of a meat shield, and you'll definitely be using him a lot more than just in the early stage of the game. Next is Valkyrie, and she's the most powerful cat that you can get free to play at the time. So you'll be getting stuff like Bean Cats, Maneko, and then after that, you'll get this unit called Valkyrie, who is a decently fast semi-rusher, I'd like to say, who has a good amount of range, decent DPS, good damage per attack, I'd say, and a decent amount of health. So you're getting a solid unit that's a bit cheaper than an Uber, but also not quite the strength of an Uber. But Valkyrie is going to be imperative for quite a few reasons, because one, after you beat Empire of Cats Chapter 2, you get stuck on Chapter 3, which is noticeably harder, and additionally, you're going to be fighting Bun. So at the time, she might be your most powerful unit, so you're definitely going to want to beat Bun, because the unit that you get for beating Bun happens to be on this list as well, and I'm going to get to him in a few minutes. But Valkyrie will carry you through early game, just because you might not have all of the other fancy units, including Eurun, because once you get Eurun, she pretty much replaces Valkyrie as well. But Valkyrie is very useful for that time, and even afterwards, she's okay. But once you start getting Ubers, she does get outclassed. So I'm going to put her at the bottom of Fantastic, almost niche, because she has that one chapter pretty much carrying you. But other than that, she loses value once you get better options. Next, we have Shygon Cat, and he's going to go up into Fantastic, the bottom of Fantastic. He's kind of like the Ramen Cat of zombies. I like to compare him to that because he's slow, but he's also incredibly durable, and he's great against his own trait, which he specializes against zombies. You're going to start farming cat food and stuff and getting extra energy by clearing zombie outbreaks and all of the main chapters. So eventually in early game, you will start doing that to start farming cat food and whatnot, and he will help you a lot if you can roll him, because he is resistant against zombies and he's a zombie killer. So he can get rid of them while protecting your army from them. So very, very great against that one trait. And even after that, he's a pretty solid generalist. So I'm going to put him in Fantastic. He's not as niche as the units that are in niche, and he does have a purpose outside of his trait, so I will put him in Fantastic. And here's Bahamut Cat. So when you have Valkyrie and you finally beat Bun, which by the way is a major accomplishment because it is the #1 most quit on stage in the Battle Cats, meaning players don't come back to the Battle Cats after they lose to it a million times. Bahamut Cat is essential. He's essential as soon as you get him, and he's going to be essential throughout the entire game, I'd argue. Especially this year, he got a massive buff in his true form, which you'll get in mid-game. But he has become absolutely broken. Even before his true form, he's a very powerful nuker. He has the most range on this list. And all in all, he can do an absolutely freaking insane amount of damage, as long as he doesn't miss. That's the thing. He's prone to missing because he has a very long time in between attacks, 20 seconds, but when he hits, he hits. He has an absolutely insane amount of potential, and if you can utilize it, then he will help you infinitely. He deals the most amount of damage on this list at level 30, and at the same time, he has the most range, so just think of that. He's safe as long as you protect him. And if you use him in the right situations, he will carry you all game. It doesn't matter what form you use of him, he will carry you. Granted, his true form is used more by people in mid to late game, but his first two forms are plenty good, and you'll be super stoked to get him. Next is going to be Gato Amigo. We have another meat shield. He's pretty good, honestly. I know there's a lot of meat shields on this list, but I cannot stress it enough that you need to protect your main units. That's the number one mistake that I made and a bunch of other people have done, because you think that just because you send out your super powerful cats, that if you don't protect them, they'll do well. It's not the case. You need a strong protection for your offense. So I'm going to put that there. And additionally, for your defense, you have to protect your good units, because if you're being pushed back, you have to keep them safe so you can get another one out and so you can continue doing damage. So meat shields all the way, spam them, and protect your good attackers. I cannot stress it enough, but it is so important. Next, we have Macho Legs, aka Gross Cat. He's fantastic, especially throughout the first couple chapters of Into the Future and Empire of Cats, because his true form actually specializes against aliens, which is pretty good. And all in all, even in mid-game, he's quite solid. So I'm going to put him in fantastic. Just a really solid unit right there because he has range. He's kind of like Paris Cat, just doesn't have the area attack, but he has more concentrated damage. So he can definitely do well in stages with less meat shields, or if you just need that extra backline support, he could help. Very similarly is going to be Dragon Cat, last but not least, and he's going to go in fantastic as well. He's very similar to Macho Legs in terms of role, but he has a bit more range and he has some better overall stats. So he is like a buffed version of him. However, he does cost a bit more, so keep that in mind. But these are 18 units that you should definitely look into getting, or you kind of have to use some of them too. You don't have a choice in the beginning of the game 100% because, you know, some of them are just given to you. You have to use Macho Cat in the first stage. Then eventually you're going to have to use Eraser Cat a lot. And all in all, each of these units are going to help you a lot. So these are 18 that I found that I thought can assist any new player. And even if you're in mid-game and you're watching this, for the most part, it applies to you as well. Late game, even I'd say half these units in late game are still quite powerful. If that, that might be an understatement. But if this video helped you and you're new and maybe you're lost because there's hundreds of cats in the game, then I'm honored because this advice was not here for me when I started playing almost a decade ago. So I hope you enjoyed. And to my veterans that might be watching right now, please help the youngins out. You know, anybody who just joined the game, because this is a great community that the game has, and we want to make sure that you succeed. But if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Bahamut Cat signing off, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.